What if I told you that no one has ever truly disturbed your peace? Not your enemies, not your critics, not even the people closest to you. What if the real source of your frustration isn't the world outside, but the way you respond to it? Imagine walking through life untouched by insults, unaffected by opinions, completely steady no matter what happens around you. That kind of freedom isn't a dream, it's a shift in how you see things. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Notice how selective this is. If a stranger says something offensive, you might brush it off without a second thought. But if those same words come from someone important to you, a partner, a parent, a boss, they hit much deeper. Why? Because you've assigned value to their opinion in your sense of self. Their words touch your ego, and the ego reacts, demanding respect, recognition, validation. To stop being bothered, you have to see this connection. It's not their words, it's how tightly you're holding on to your identity. When you loosen that grip, something interesting happens. Their words lose their weight. They become just sounds, passing through the air without leaving a mark. There's a simple story that captures this perfectly. A monk once stood calmly while a villager shouted insults at him for hours. The monk didn't react, he simply smiled. Later, someone asked how he remained so composed. He replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does it belong to?" Insults are the same. If you don't take them in, they stay with the person who gave them. Do you really want to reach a place where nothing anyone does can disturb you? Then start by seeing this clearly. No one has ever truly bothered you. What unsettles you is your own reaction. The moment you understand that, something shifts. You become far less affected, almost untouchable. Think about everyday situations. Someone says something rude, ignores you, or cuts you off in traffic. Instantly, you feel irritation or anger rise. But pause for a second. What actually caused that feeling? Was it their action or the meaning you gave to it? People act according to their nature, their mood, their own struggles. Your suffering begins when you let their behavior dictate how you feel inside. Imagine living like that. The world could be loud, chaotic, even harsh, and you would move through it untouched. That's real freedom. Not controlling how others behave, because that's impossible. People will always have their opinions, their moods, their flaws. True freedom lies in choosing how you respond. You can react with anger, or you can let it pass. You can hold on to it, or you can release it. So ask yourself honestly, why do you let people take up space in your mind long after the moment has passed? Someone says something upsetting in the morning, and by night you're still replaying it, reliving it, arguing with it in your head. Meanwhile, they've already moved on. They're living their life, unaware, while you're stuck in a loop. At that point, who is bothering you? Not them, you are. Most of the weight you carry comes from continuing a story that has already ended. You keep the conversation alive inside your mind, feeding it, shaping it, giving it energy. But the truth is, you can stop at any moment. The door is open. You just have to walk out. And it's not only strangers who trigger you. The people closest to you often affect you the most. Why? Because you expect them to behave a certain way. You create a silent script in your mind for how they should act, speak, and treat you. When they don't follow that script, it feels like a betrayal. But here's the reality. They never agreed to play that role. They're living their own story, just like you are. The discomfort comes from expecting them to be different than they are. The moment you release that expectation, something lightens. They may still act in ways you don't like, but your peace is no longer tied to their behavior. You stop trying to control what was never yours to control. Imagine allowing people to simply be who they are, without trying to fix them, change them, or make them understand you. In that space, you find freedom. Their actions become like weather, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, but you remain steady. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. You can still care deeply, still love fully, but without attaching your emotional state to someone else's actions. That's clarity, not indifference. At the root of it all is the ego, the version of yourself you've built in your mind. It's constantly seeking approval, constantly afraid of rejection. When someone praises you, it expands. When someone criticizes you, it shrinks. You become dependent on others to define how you feel. But that identity isn't who you truly are. It's just a story you've been telling yourself. Beneath it, there's something steady, something aware, something untouched by praise or criticism. When you begin to recognize that, everything changes. You stop reacting so quickly. You stop taking things so personally. You start to see that most of what disturbs you isn't coming from the outside, it's being created within. And in that realization, you find a quiet kind of power, a freedom that doesn't depend on anyone else. The moment you truly understand this, something shifts inside you. You stop being pulled in every direction by what people say or think. You become steady, not because the world changes, but because you stop clinging to it. Think of it like an actor on a stage. If the audience boos, the character might seem embarrassed, but the actor knows it's just a role. In the same way, your ego might feel attacked, but the deeper part of you, the awareness behind it, remains untouched. When you see that clearly, you start moving through life with ease. Words come and go, actions rise and fall, but they don't stick to you anymore. Being unbothered doesn't mean building emotional walls. It means realizing there's nothing there that can truly be hurt. Life keeps unfolding, but you stay free within it. And often when people criticize or insult you, it has very little to do with you. They're expressing their own frustration, their own pain, their own confusion. It's like they're trying to unload something heavy. If you take it personally, you carry that weight. But if you see it for what it is, you can simply let it pass. You recognize, this belongs to them, not me. Learning this is powerful. Understanding what is yours to carry and what is not. Take what helps you grow and leave the rest behind. Some people think the solution is to shut others out, to withdraw, to avoid interaction altogether. But that's not freedom, that's avoidance. If your peace depends on isolation, then it's fragile. Real strength is being able to stand in the middle of noise, chaos, and unpredictability and still remain calm. Anyone can feel peaceful alone. The real test is staying grounded when you're surrounded by people. Look at anger. When someone comes at you with it, your instinct is to respond the same way. Their fire becomes your fire. But in that moment, who's in control? Not you. They sparked it and you carried it forward. Now imagine choosing not to react. Let the fire stop before it reaches you. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Sometimes a calm smile is stronger than any comeback. Not every spark needs fuel. Be like water. When you strike water, it doesn't fight back. It adapts, it flows, it remains unchanged. A blade cannot harm it. If you learn to move like that, soft, flexible, open, you become impossible to break. People may speak harshly or act carelessly, but you stay steady, adjusting without losing yourself. That's not weakness, it's resilience in its purest form. Another truth is this. People often disappoint you because you expect too much from them. You expect wisdom, patience, kindness, but are you always those things yourself? Probably not. So why hold others to a standard you don't always meet? When you accept that everyone is imperfect, just figuring life out as they go, their behavior feels less personal. Instead of reacting with frustration, you begin to understand. And when there is understanding, there is less room to be bothered. There's a simple way to look at it. If a dog barks at you, you don't bark back. It wouldn't make sense. So why react the same way when a person lashes out? It's not about looking down on them, it's about realizing how unnecessary it is to lose your peace over every reaction. You don't need to respond to everything. Sometimes the strongest response is none at all. And here's something worth thinking about. What if the people who irritate you are actually helping you? They reveal where you're still sensitive, where you're still attached. They show you the places inside you that haven't found freedom yet. Without them, you might think you're completely in control, but they test you. They highlight your limits. In that sense, they're not just obstacles, they're mirrors. If you start using these moments differently, everything changes. Instead of saying someone ruined your day, you begin to see that they revealed something within you that still needs work. In that shift, even the most frustrating people become part of your growth. That's why those who are truly wise don't resist difficulty, they welcome it. Every irritation, every harsh word becomes a signal showing where you're still holding on too tightly. Imagine this in real life. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Instead of reacting with anger, you pause and think, here's my chance to practice patience. Someone speaks badly about you. Instead of jumping to defend yourself, you notice it and think, here's my chance to let go. When you start looking at life this way, everything becomes a lesson. Every interaction, every challenge starts guiding you instead of disturbing you. Being unbothered doesn't mean avoiding problems. It means using every situation as a way to grow stronger and more aware. Now, a common question comes up. Does this mean people can just walk all over you? Not at all. Staying unbothered is not the same as being passive or weak. It's about clarity. You can still set firm boundaries, but without anger. You can walk away, but without resentment. You can say no clearly and confidently without feeling guilty. Real strength doesn't need to shout. It's quiet, steady, and grounded. Like a mountain that doesn't argue with the wind, it simply stands. The person who is truly unbothered isn't someone who gets pushed around. They are calm, centered, and solid. And because of that, when they speak, whether it's a yes or a no, it carries real weight. Think about the strongest people you've known. They don't lose control over every insult, and they don't fall apart over rejection. They stay composed, they breathe, they move forward, and something interesting happens in their presence. Others begin to feel calmer too. Your peace doesn't just affect you, it influences everyone around you. When you stay grounded, you quietly give others permission to do the same. A tense, angry environment can soften because of one person who refuses to react. That person can be you if you choose not to get pulled into the cycle of reaction. So how do you actually practice this? It starts with awareness. Notice when something triggers you. Feel the reaction rising inside, but don't act immediately. Just pause, then shift your perspective. Ask yourself honestly, does this really matter? Will this still matter in a week, a year, or at the end of my life? Most of the time, the answer is no. And then comes the most important step, letting go. Don't carry someone else's negativity inside you. Let it stay with them. It was never yours to hold. As you repeat this process again and again, something begins to change. The things that once upset you lose their grip. You find yourself staying calm in situations that used to trigger you. You walk away from conflicts you once would have fed. That's growth. That's real freedom. Because at the end of the day, you can't control how people behave. Some will be rude. Some will be unfair. Some will misunderstand you completely. That's part of life. But what always remains in your control is whether you allow their actions to take your peace away, or whether you keep it firmly in your own hands. There's another layer to this that becomes clear with practice. At first, it feels like you're constantly catching yourself after you've already reacted. You get irritated. Then you remember, I didn't need to react like that. That's still progress. Over time, the gap between the trigger and your reaction starts to widen. In that small space, you gain choice. And that choice is where your freedom lives. You also begin to notice patterns. Certain people, certain tones, certain situations affect you more than others. That's not random, it points to deeper attachments, old beliefs, or insecurities that haven't been fully seen yet. Instead of resisting those moments, you can use them as a mirror. They show you what still has power over you. When you stop running from that and start observing it without judgment, those triggers slowly lose their grip. Another important shift is understanding that not everything deserves your energy. You don't have to respond to every comment, correct every misunderstanding, or defend yourself in every situation. A lot of inner peace comes from realizing that silence is often a stronger response than explanation. Not because you're avoiding, but because you've decided it's not worth your attention. Your energy is limited, and where you place it shapes your experience of life. At the same time, being unbothered doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. You're still human. You'll feel anger, hurt, disappointment. The difference is you don't let those emotions take over and dictate your actions. You feel them, you understand them, and then you let them pass instead of holding on to them. Emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and fall. Suffering begins when you try to hold the wave in place. You'll also notice how much of your disturbance comes from trying to control things you simply can't control. How others think, how they behave, how they perceive you. When you let go of that need, a lot of tension disappears. You start focusing on what is actually yours, your actions, your mindset, your responses. That shift alone brings a sense of relief, because you're no longer fighting battles you were never meant to win. Relationships change too when you live this way. You stop needing constant validation or agreement. You listen more, react less, and give people the space to be who they are without taking everything personally. This doesn't weaken your connections, it actually strengthens them because they're no longer built on expectation and control, but on understanding and acceptance. There's also a quiet confidence that grows within you, not the loud, defensive kind, but a steady knowing that you are okay no matter what others say or do. You don't need to prove yourself as much. You don't feel the urge to win every argument. You become more focused on maintaining your inner balance than being right. And as this deepens, life starts to feel lighter. The same situations that once drained you no longer carry the same weight. You move through challenges with more ease, not because life got easier, but because you stopped resisting everything that happens. You become more adaptable, more present, and less entangled in unnecessary drama. This is not something that happens overnight. It's a practice, something you return to again and again. Some days you'll handle things well. Other days you'll fall back into old patterns. That's part of the process. What matters is that you keep noticing, keep learning, and keep choosing differently when you can. Over time, you realize that being unbothered isn't about becoming distant or indifferent. It's about becoming deeply rooted in yourself. So rooted that the outside world can move as it will, but it doesn't pull you out of your center. And in that state, you don't just protect your peace, you live from it. As you go deeper into this way of living, you begin to notice something subtle but powerful. You stop taking things personally, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that most of what people say and do has very little to do with you. It comes from their mood, their past, their beliefs, their struggles. Once you really see that, you stop turning every interaction into something about your worth. There's also a shift in how quickly you recover. Before, a small comment could ruin your entire day. Now, even if something stings, it passes much faster. You don't sit with it for hours, replaying it again and again. You feel it, you acknowledge it, and then you move on. That ability to let things pass is what keeps your mind clear and your energy intact. You also become more intentional with your attention. Instead of focusing on who offended you or what went wrong, you start asking better questions. What actually matters right now? What deserves my focus? Is this situation worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. And when you consistently choose where your attention goes, your mind becomes a much calmer place to live in. Another thing that changes is your need to be understood. Earlier, you might have felt frustrated when people misjudged you or didn't see your intentions clearly. But now you realize that not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. You stop trying to explain yourself to everyone. You become comfortable being misunderstood by some, because you're clear within yourself. You also learn to trust your silence. Not every situation needs your opinion. Not every moment needs your reaction. Sometimes, the strongest move is to observe, stay grounded, and let things unfold without interference. There's a quiet strength in that kind of restraint, and it protects you from unnecessary conflict. At the same time, your responses become more deliberate. When you do choose to speak or act, it comes from a place of clarity instead of impulse. You're not reacting, you're responding. And that difference changes everything. Your words carry more weight, your actions feel more aligned, and you don't regret them later. Over time, this way of being starts to shape your entire life. You attract less drama, not because the world has changed, but because you no longer engage with it the same way. Situations that once escalated now dissolve quickly because you don't feed them. You become someone who brings calm into tense situations rather than adding to the chaos. There's also a deeper sense of self-respect that develops. You stop abandoning your peace just to prove a point or win an argument. You realize that your inner state is more valuable than being right. And that realization makes you stronger, not weaker. Eventually, you understand that being unbothered isn't about controlling your environment. It's about mastering your inner world. It's about knowing that no matter what happens outside, you have the ability to remain steady inside. That kind of stability becomes your foundation. And once you reach that place, life feels different. Not perfect, not free of challenges, but lighter, clearer, and more under your control in the only way that truly matters. You're no longer at the mercy of every opinion, every action, every passing moment. You stand in your own space, grounded and aware, and from there nothing can truly shake you. Peace is not something you find in a quiet world. It's something you create within yourself, even in the noise. People will act as they do. Situations will unfold as they will, but none of it has the power to shake you unless you hand it over. The moment you stop reacting to everything and start choosing your response, you reclaim your freedom. You are no longer controlled, no longer disturbed. You simply remain calm and unshaken, no matter what comes your way.